that time of year again, straight of Belle, the ferry service. Here we are, first, second week in January, and we're already facing some serious issues again, like we were last year. What's really, really frustrating, we don't seem to learn anything from one year to another. Today we have a lot of people left stranded. The movement of goods and services is at a standstill again, possibly until Monday, Pete. The ferry left Blanche. She came across to St. Barb. As I understand it from other people, she did some back and forth into Slob. She got in and docked. The reason she left those people and didn't go back across, I've heard numerous stories, and nobody seems to be getting the right story. But I think one of the major things is she did not have icebreaker support. Now, we know that what we're dealing with, it's January, it's Labrador, and why is there no planning? Why was there no request put in for an icebreaker? I understand after all of this this afternoon that the Anne Harvey, which was tied up in St. John's, is en route. Now, there is a bad forecast coming on, so these people are probably left stranded. It's not good enough. Services go down in other parts of the province, and there's a whole lot of hoopla, and good for them, because, as a government, what's the job of government? The job of government is to provide a service to the people of the province. But repeatedly, we see neglect up in this area. The people are living it, people that, how hard it is to get specialist appointments in the province. Sometimes they're waiting for 6-8 months, and then we have ferry issues, and then they go back on that list again. Today, somebody said there's a strong westerly forecast calling for Blanche, and this is a bigger issue, more long term, I'm speaking to you about now, but continually we see issues with the boat being prevented from being able to dock in Quebec, and that's an issue that we have to look at as well. Sometimes the Quebec ferry takes precedent, and the people from our province that the boat is serving, they have to wait, and they get delayed, and they incur extra expense in hotels and things like that. I was just thinking as I was driving along, we got Pentagon doing this major work in Forto, and a part of that includes a wharf and laydown area in Forto Bay. Now, a part of that contract stipulates that has to be all taken up at the end. Why not leave it there? And let's start with, let's look at a bigger picture and try to put some vision to this, and maybe have the boat come into Forto Bay. But in the meantime, what's happening with the people there is not good enough. And I know our government, and under the leadership of Dwight Ball, we have committed to completing an updated feasibility study. But we're not seeing anything, Pete.
Is it the situation that things like no icebreaker support is more common, like in that particular area than elsewhere in the province? I know that obviously you're going to get ice and have it longer than other places, but do we see a delay in when it's needed and when it's available more so in your district, say, than Fogo, for instance?
Well, Pete, I haven't done a lot of monitoring on the other areas, but I'm certainly going to look into that. But I can tell you repeatedly last winter, that boat could have provided, we had the bond on, and the bond, that's another story because she's out of commission. So we're going to be in for one tough winter because the Apollo, that 40-year-old boat, she's not going to be able to handle the traffic, the residential or the commercial. But last winter, we saw icebreaker support leave people out in the ice in the middle of the night and go rescue somebody who, other fishing boats that were in trouble and that needed to be rescued. But from what I could gather, half the time, the majority of the Coast Guard ships were tied up somewhere because there was no money to run them. There was no money to put fuel in them to run. There has to be a service here for these people. I
know, but I'm just thinking now that in the past you may have been able to make a case that things weren't done properly through incompetence, lack of scheduling, and just not being prompt on picking up the clues for when you need to do this and that. But in the future, I can imagine that an awful lot of lack of services is going to come down to budgetary restrictions. These dropping revenues through the price of oil, the dropping price of oil, are going to really leave an awful lot of people wanting for an awful lot of things.
Pete, you've raised a very good issue. Yes, it looks like we're headed into weather out a little storm. That saddens us so much. You know, in Labrador, we've had decades of neglect. And the people that live there, if we had some principles of adjacency applied to some of the resources coming out of Labrador, I guarantee you we wouldn't be on talking to you about 40-year-old boats, because we'd have state-of-the-art ships. If that area was getting back 1/4 of what it went out, conversation perhaps for another day. But what we're talking about today, Pete, is not wishes. In the future, the price of oil is going to continue to drop, and we are going to have to prioritize the spending, and we are going to have to spend smarter. But, Pete, we're talking about a basic service that connects all of the people of Labrador. You know, we're not just talking about my district. We're not just talking about the Labrador Straits. I know you visited there yourself. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, people, Labrador City, Lake Melville. It's the whole of Labrador that depends on this service, and many people from the island, I can assure you of that, use the service to go back and forth. So now I want to give some credit where credit is due. I have no issue with that. In the last year and a half, I've dealt with 3 ministers in transportation. It was Minister Davis initially. It was Minister McGrath. Since October, it's been Minister Brazel. I'm confident that I'm going to be able to sit down at the table and have some more meaningful dialogue with Minister Brazel. In Christmas time, we had some issues. We had a ferry go off with only a 24-hour notice to the little island of Williams Harbour. We had people in Norman Bay stranded. I worked with Brazel. I worked with his department right through Christmas, and we were able to come to some resolution and keep those people moving during the holidays. And so I look forward to continuing to work with him on it. But there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of costs being incurred by people, extra costs that people nowhere else in the province is having to deal with.
Okay. Well, I do look forward to another conversation, especially about that whole notion you just brought up about adjacency of resources and good things coming to the area that has it. I mean, that's a big conversation. That is essentially saying that if we're going to start treating the areas with certain resources more favorably, then we're probably talking about a fractioning up of the province, and in a way, it won't be one whole province that sort of takes everything that we have at our at our behest and deal with it according to populations and need and all that sort of thing. That's a very big conversation. I want to have that because we hear it time and time again. There's some interesting things in that I'd like to debate.
Pete, let me make one comment on that. Since 1949, this province joined Confederation. Labrador have not moved across, and we're not looking for anything special. We are looking for fairness and equality to the rest of the province. That's what this is all about. And every time we speak out and we say we're looking for something, you want to separate, you want to do this or that. I leave town, every weekend on a regular basis. I go back to my district, and there's parts I drive. I wonder if I'm in a third world country. I can't hardly accept that I'm in the same province. We're not looking for icing on the cake. We're asking for equal. And, yes, because of where we live, sometimes it costs more. To have true equity, sometimes you have to have the unequal treatment of equals. But what really has turned the stomachs of the people there is when they watch big ships go into Voisey's Bay and take the resources out, and they're going like I said in the House of Assembly, like a hot knife through butter. Anytime things are needed to get out of Labrador for political gain, to contribute to the provincial treasury, there is a means and a will found to do it. But when it comes to providing a service to the people there, we're sadly lacking now, and we've been lacking for a long time, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, we can certainly pick up on that another day. That's a big conversation unto itself. I appreciate the time today.
And I certainly appreciate you giving me this much time. You enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.